Our final, I think it's our final workshop of 2025, partnership with Sunscreen Film Festival and Tony Armour. This has been a really great series. Last year, and this has really, I think, brought a lot of parts of filmmaking, production, and just a lot of the players in this local scene to light, as we'll hear tonight, in ways that I think are really important for our community as filmmakers. I know it's easy to sit at home and make your own movies or write and do so, but to be part of a community like this is something that we're trying to be better at fostering here at the University of Tampa, especially with the film program. And one of the ways we've done this throughout is with our partnerships with institutions like Sunscreen Film Festival. It's the 20th anniversary?
Yeah, this year. Yes, this year was the 20th.
20th. So I want to say I've known these guys most of the time they've been doing it. It dates me a little bit here in Tampa, but I think there's a core of us that really want filmmaking to thrive here. I think we're in a moment where things are really coming around and becoming bigger than they have been in many respects. And I think it's due to people like Tony and all of the effort he does coming out here on his own time, arranging these talks, getting you guys to come. But I want to also thank you as an audience for being here and supporting the arts in the same way. It's important for us to really band together because I think it's a special moment for film in Tampa, and I think this is a big part of it. And I just want to thank you guys for continuing to do this. Without further ado, I'm going to let Tony introduce our tonight's interviewees and topic, and then about an hour from now, or whenever you're done with the conversation, you can sort of break into a Q&A, and we'll be out of the theater promptly at 8. So imagine 90 minutes from now, we'll be on our way out. If you have more questions or comments for Tony or our ShoStak folks, we can always move into the lobby afterwards as well. So thank you for being here. Thanks again, Tony, and let's welcome you to.
Yes. Thanks, Greg. So as Greg said, I want to, of course, thank University of Tampa for doing this workshop series with us. We started it last year and have had a good series this year, and then are excited for our final one for 2025 to have Michael Brown with ShoStak here for this. So I'll do some quick intros since I know some people in the audience know me, some people don't know me, and then this will end up on YouTube later as well, and I'm assuming most people that would watch this on YouTube have no idea who we are and what we're doing, so might as well do that intro for them as well. So my name is Tony Armour, co-founder of the Sunscreen Film Festival, just wrapped our 20th year in St. Pete, also was the film commissioner here in St. Pete Clearwater for almost 9 years, and then took over Dallas, Texas Film Commission for about a year and a half, also a vice president of Film USA, which is our national film commission association, and then a longtime filmmaker for many years, and taught here at the University of Tampa for a little bit, taught at the Art Institute, where I met Mike many years ago, and lots of stuff in the film industry. I've been doing it for a while, and I'll let Mike, who, like I said, I've known for a long time, and Mike's a very well-established producer, line producer, writer, director, a little bit of everything, give his bio and intro as well.
Well, it's not as fancy as that there, but my name is Michael Brown. I've been a filmmaker for probably about 15, 17 years now. Started out in the commercial industry space. My business partner, Conrad, we've been on down this journey for a long time together. And we transitioned into the filmmaking space probably about 10 years ago now, and did some local projects here, and started our career in that space, and then started doing some bigger projects up in New York and Massachusetts, and some stuff with Hulu and Netflix. And then, now actually transitioned into the documentary filmmaking space. We just finished up a project shooting out in India for 60 days. I'm really excited about that, and have just been enjoying this journey. Lots of highs and lows, feast and famine. If everybody here is a filmmaker, you kind of get that. But it's been treating us really well, and we're excited to kind of take this into a whole new space with ShoStak and really bring all of that experience and on the storytelling side and the business side to a platform that actually benefits creators, because that's what's near and dear to our heart.
Yeah, and so I think to start out, the title of this workshop, it's a long title, but essentially, we're talking about vertical videos and micro dramas, essentially. And so Mike will get into a little bit later, ShoStak and what that is and that particular platform itself. But in general, we want to talk about what micro dramas are, and how they're so popular right now and kind of the format and what they are, because a lot of people are starting to hear about them. A lot of people might be familiar with them because they're watching them on DramaBox and ReelShorts, but we'll talk a little bit about sort of the business side of micro dramas, why they're so effective, why they're working right now, and kind of what they are. So Mike, why don't you give us a little bit of an explanation of what is a micro drama? What's happening here with these things?
So I was actually just introduced to these not too long ago because Conrad over here and his partner were advocate watchers of microdramas. Conrad loves them. He was raving about them. And so he was like, dude, you got to check these things out. They're revolutionary. But he kind of showed me a little bit about what these things were. And it was interesting because they were these kind of like, I think the bastard stepchild of like social media turned filmmakers, turned like this really interesting space where people recognized how to take storytelling content, I actually look at it as a positive, and make it super short and figure out a way to hook the audience to where they were interested in watching more. But what I recognize also is that all of these micro dramas were like literally in this kind of box that was like soap opera, like very cheesy, but also at the same time it worked, right? And I mean, every kind of title that you can think of, you know.
My billionaire boss's pregnant ex-wife, or who knows?
Yeah,
Lots of crazy. The crazier the title, the
yeah.
more popular the. Conrad was a star of that one. Yeah.
And so, you know, it was like, okay, well, this is interesting because we had, you know, not to get too far into it, but we had some ideas a long time ago for short format episodic content. But I mean, in reality is, you know, it costs a lot of money to do live action or animation. And, you know, it just didn't make sense at the time to create something to stretch that creative muscle because these platforms didn't really exist. You had Netflix, Hulu, you know, all the big streamers that, you know, where are you going to put that content? How are you going to make your money back? So what's the explanation besides it's just another passion project, right?
Yeah, and these are essentially, they're 90-minute feature films that are chopped up into 1-minute segments with the cliffhanger at the end of every 60 seconds to get you to click to the next video. And they give you the first few for free, and then after that, you have to pay like 99 cents to watch the next one. So there might be 90 episodes in one microdrama, and you get to watch those first 6 or 7 free, and then you start clicking to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Next thing you know, you might have spent, you know, $80 watching one movie that, you know, if you went to the theaters and just paid $15 or whatever, but you get to watch it on your phone. And so they've become very profitable. And you know when an industry is starting to become profitable, that's when everybody starts to circle, because now you're seeing all the big talent agencies. And when SAG comes out and says, oh, microdramas, maybe we should have a microdrama contract under SAG, then, you know, people see the dollar signs and they start to, you know, kind of attach onto that.
Right. Yeah, and I did a little deep dive into the, you know, obviously the ReelShorts and things like that, and they're all Asian-based. A lot of these, if you look at them, I mean, all the content is for the most part with Asian actors, Asian filmmakers, and I recognized very quickly that the process, the business behind it, was actually no different than what a normal streaming platform would be, in the sense that it either they're licensing content or there's a lot of money behind these platforms that are just having creators make this content, and the money is not there. Yeah,
and you know, the budget of one of these typical 90-minute microdramas is anywhere from $100,000 to $300,000. They're non-union projects, so non-union on the crew side, non-union on the actor side. And the microdramas in LA are some of the things that have actually been keeping the industry somewhat afloat out there, while so much of the industry has left Los Angeles and gone to other areas. Like, people are literally paying their bills because they're working on these microdramas instead.
Right. And that's what kind of sparked the interest for me, is because, like, even though I didn't necessarily resonate with what the content was, I saw an opportunity, a canvas was starting to be created that is, you know, is arguably somewhat new. And as a storyteller, I think that's a super exciting time to start to see something where you can actually stretch and you don't have to conform to the typical business model, which is extremely difficult. There's a lot of gatekeepers and stuff like that. So I saw opportunity with that. Conrad saw opportunity with that. We talked about it, and we were like, you know what? How do we take this, but how do we elevate it? How do we take this to the standard that we want to with storytelling? How do we make TV like it used to be, which wasn't that cool? How do we make TV? How do we make these verticals and these things cool like now TV shows are, and actually something that's sought after?
Yeah, and so, back in 2019, early 2020, maybe a little late 2018, Quibi tried to do something similar, right? Does anybody remember Quibi from like 6 years ago? Yeah, they had like $1 billion in investment coming to this company, and they were going to make high quality short form content. And then so, they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on shorts rather than $100,000 on a full feature. Why, in your opinion, do you think, this format has been so successful like this, while Quibi was I don't think it's a stretch to say, a spectacular failure, in that they lost all their money and just nobody connected with it. Nobody wanted to watch it. Because I remember at the time when Quibi was coming out, I was like, well, YouTube already exists. Like, why would I pay for Quibi when I can just go to YouTube instead?
I think they were still, you spend a lot of time looking at business models that maybe are reminiscent of what you're doing and see where they failed and didn't, what they did right. And I think Quibi was before its time in the sense that they were trying to elevate short format content without a space that really recognized the value of that format, that canvas. And they were dumping so much money into creating these projects. They were paying A-list actors to be in them. And so the price point on creating these short films far exceeded any ROI. And it's within that kind of wheel that's where Quibi failed, because they just didn't know how to capture the content and tell good stories, but outside of the business model that was driving the price points way outside of,
Yeah. Well, because, as we started to talk about before all this started, soap operas have existed for, many, many years, since probably the 1950s or 1940, even late 40s.
1937.
maybe Greg knows, as the resident film professor. Any idea? No, somewhere. That's right. As soon as you had sound and television, you had soap operas, and those have always been since then until now just very kind of cheap, cheesy romance stories and that kind of thing. And these, DramaBox and ReelShorts and these microdramas, they've essentially captured the essence of the soap opera that our grandmas used to watch and turned it into short form content now.
Right, and they're pairing that with emerging social media stars, personalities that people obviously gravitate towards and like to follow, in this new era of social media. And I think they found something that works, and that's what's really cool about it. It's kind of coming back full circle, and I think it's setting the foundation for something that's revolutionary, something that's really going to change the way that people make content and interact with content. And that's the reason why it's now the .com era of streaming platforms, because everybody wants to make one, but it's what can we do differently and what's outside the box, and that's what's next.
Yeah, and so I think, that's part of the conversation then, is as any business model starts to mature, even though it's only been a few years, sort of the microdramas are starting to mature a little bit, because, like I was saying earlier, everybody's actually paying attention now. When the numbers started to come out that, whatever the, billionaire something or other made $300 million or something like that, then people are like, oh, this isn't just cheap garbage. This is a way to make money. And so then from a filmmaker's perspective, I know there are some filmmakers who are trying to figure out independently, like traditionally it's always been, I'm going to go make my independent film, and then I'm going to sell my independent film, and I want it to get a theatrical release, and I want it to go on to X streaming platform or whatever it is. And so there's that traditional filmmaking that we've had multiple workshops here talking about finance and distribution and how you get that done and whatever else. But now filmmakers are changing that mindset a little bit, and it's like, oh, what if I made the micro drama instead? It's not cinematic filmmaking, but it can be that stepping stone for filmmakers, content creators to kind of, progress.
Yeah, and I think that you could say that it's a stepping stone if that's the genre that you want to live in. I think that there's tons of value and validity in that. But what I recognize with that, and what we spent a lot of time talking about, is that it offered this bridge, right? When filmmakers want to tell their stories, they have to obviously have money or some sort of resources to be able to tell those stories. It's a very expensive medium. And when investors finally started recognizing that there was value in short format content, then that kind of completed the circle. 20 years in Sunscreen Film Festival, I mean, historically speaking, do shorts make money?
No, shorts never make money. But shorts are business cards.
Right.
You know, people use shorts as a way to, one, hone their skills and hone their talents, you know, before they make a feature, and just to practice, basically. You've got to practice making stuff before you make that feature. And then shorts are a way for people to get noticed as well. And every time, I just had a short play at Key West Film Festival, every single person that had a short in that same block had created that short as a proof of concept for an eventual feature film. Every single one. It was like, this is a short, but we have the feature version of this that we want to do. And so that's what shorts have become, are business cards and proof of concept. Do we have music playing somewhere here in the background, maybe? Sorry, it's just it's a little distracting, if that's all right.
But the thing is that that evolution is where we kind of like are seeing the value in this, is because they were traditionally calling cards. And let's face the facts. Even if you want to create a good short, it still costs money, and it costs time, and it's resources. And as filmmakers, we can only ask for favors so much before people around us start going like, look, man, I got bills to pay. I've got mouths to feed. I've got families. So how do you solve that problem, right? And then so shorts now can start making money because these platforms are opening up and offering a monetization path for them. They're becoming sought after now. So no longer is it just a calling card. There's a way to actually make it a viable business. And that's what's really cool about this. And that's what's happening right now as we speak with these streaming platforms. We just need to focus that now, and like there'll be a ton of them, but start to figure out which ones are the ones worth participating in.
Yeah. So we're going to get into ShoStak, which is a new startup, micro company, basically. But before we do that, I guess want to get a kind of a from the audience a little bit of a a baseline on. Because you're here, obviously, because you're interested in the topic, or you just like coming to all these workshops. We have some people that just show up for all of them, which we appreciate that. I have a couple, maybe if I have one or two fans that just like to hear me talk. Connor is the only one, but that's okay. And Coley in the back as well. So kind of knowing what this topic is, are people here because they're just curious? Is that maybe one? No? Okay. A couple people curious. People here because you're interested in creating in this format. Okay, so a lot of hands go up. So everyone that said they're interested in creating in this format, is that because you're already familiar with this? You know about it? How many people have actually watched the microdramas? Okay, so not as many people as are interested in creating in the format. So that's a good kind of like baseline for us to know that people are still just learning about this. It's not so mature yet that everybody knows what it is and everybody's watching it. People are still trying to figure it out. So all that being said, we've kind of gone over, what the microdramas are, how they work. I guess let's talk a little bit about ShoStak and how that's a little bit different. So your main platforms are, and we keep talking about DramaBox and ReelShorts, but there are others out there. Do you know how many in general? Like how many of these platforms are there?
Not a number. I know that there's dozens and dozens of them, and there's more coming out every day. I mean, we probably see an advertisement for some sort of new perspective on some sort of streaming platform sponsored by some actor or something like that is like now, kind of taking a crack at it. And so it's happening quite a lot.
And these are all app-based. These are all apps that you have to download, and then once you're in their ecosystem within the app and they've got your payment information, that's how it makes it easy to just click to the next one,
right,
and the next one and the next one, and keep paying for it, basically.
Right.
Do any of these sort of, how are they advertising and promoting themselves currently? Is that social media? Like how are the current micro drama short platforms kind of putting their word out there?
I think social media, getting people attached that have names and followings, dumping lots of money into licensing content. That's really one of the places that we diverge a little bit, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but licensing content, hiring people to go out there and make this content for not that much money. and then just kind of like standing behind a name and trying to capture a small little niche of money, little sliver of money.
Yeah, because if we're talking about $100,000 for some of these, I think from what I've read or heard, some of these are like 5-day shoots, like literally just a Monday to Friday, and then whoosh, shoot it, and then you're done and on to the next.
Right.
Onto the next one.
Right. Yeah, we just we're excited that we just shot our pilot for a flagship product. Conrad wrote and directed. Super cool project. He brought it to me and was just like, I was blown away by what he was able to do in this really short format space. And we're excited to obviously share that with the world here once the pilot's done. But yeah, I mean, we shot the pilot in one night.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a lot faster timeline because of kind of the structure of it. And I know, so for like the micro dramas, you're not going heavy into stunts and special effects and everything. It's all essentially kind of dialogue based, and they're very romance driven and everything,
right.
As far as all those go. So then ShoStak is going to be a new platform, but sort of structured differently from all of these others. And so, Mike had reached out to me, and he told me he was going to do this, and was talking about kind of the concept and the idea, and what he wanted to do, and asked if Sunscreen would partner with them. And we always like to try and be innovative and see where the industry is going, and we'll never give up on traditional feature filmmaking and the cinematic experience, but if the industry goes in a certain direction, you kind of have to keep up with it, or you get left behind.
We're taking that same love and passion for cinema, and we're bringing that to ShoStak, and that's really kind of what sits at the base of this. Micro dramas is obviously what's being thrown out, but this is where ShoStak really shines, in that we aren't focusing on making micro dramas. We're focusing on elevating short format episodic content. Right? It's not micro dramas. It can be a horror, it can be a comedy, it can be a documentary. As long as there's a narrative through line through this, that there's a story that sits behind this content, that's really what we're attracted to at ShoStak. And so what we're doing is we're saying, hey, listen, horror fans, sure, romance, we know that kind of works a little bit, comedy, documentarians. This platform is also going to pay attention to you, and by the way, we're really going to support and elevate quality content with obviously these tools and things that are revolutionary, that allow you to see an ROI that have never been offered before in any platform.
All right, so I guess let's kind of get into that a little bit then. Talk about sort of the format for ShoStak, what it is and how you're structuring this, and then how this works with individual creators being able to create for the platform.
Yep. So we chose not to license content, and that was probably the biggest decision that we made in regards to the abundance, the main focus of how we want to interact with storytellers. And I won't get into all the reasons why we chose not to do that, but let's just say that the second that platforms start licensing content, that means that there's ownership and that there's expectations for monetization back and ROI and things like that. And we found that became a very limiting piece of the business, because what it does is it says you got somebody who's sitting behind a spreadsheet going, well, you got this really dope concept, but nothing like that's ever been told before. So we don't really know the value of it, so we're going to pass on that here. But my billionaire's baby mama made $400 million. So what do you got? Give me a number 5 of that, right? And so we did,
which is pretty much exactly how the traditional film distribution model works.
100%.
I've talked about it before, but for those new to the room or anybody watching this video on YouTube or anything, probably the perfect example is the first film that we worked on together back in 2017, a feature film called Bernie the Dolphin. And Bernie the Dolphin happened because I had a friend when we were at the Cannes Film Festival, Terry,
the writer,
Bernie the Dolphin, the writer's here.
Screenwriter right there, Terry.
Was there, and he had just sold a film to Lionsgate, and Lionsgate said, this is great, what else you got? Do you have a family-friendly kids and a marine mammal, maybe a manatee or something like that? I was like, no, but I got a guy. And so came to me, and we came up with this idea for Bernie the Dolphin and pitched it to him. And so we literally created this film because Lionsgate was asking for it. There was something that they wanted that fit a box that they knew that they needed, that they had a slot that they wanted to fill. And so, that's how, these kind of things have traditionally always been made. And then, transfer that into now the micro drama space. And it's no different when they're licensing or what they're looking for.
Yeah, and that really is when you get into that very business model there, that's when we realize, okay, the reason why you sell your soul to the devil, the reason why you get into these contracts and you make hardly any money, even though you put a lot of time, effort, and resources into it, is because there's a million middlemen in the middle and, gatekeepers, whatever. And in order to get your project seen and see some ROI on that, there was really no other outlet. There was no way to make money except for these people paying pennies on the dollar for your content. So we recognized very early on from experience on all sides and all facets of this, that if you can remove that process and connect artists directly to their audiences, the people that want to watch their content anyways, and enable the artists and give them all the tools that they would traditionally see in the traditional business model, monetization unparalleled on ShoStak, access to fans, ways to organize their content and to network, an ecosystem, all of these things that we can get into, we recognize then you don't need all of those other people, and you kind of are now back in charge of what you want to create. And the person that will judge whether your content is successful or not are your fans, and that's it. You don't have to ask for permission. You don't have to go out there and say, hey, listen, I'm going to try to convince you that my concept's super dope. Literally, your audience, your fans, the people that watch your content will be the judge of that, and they'll have a way to literally monetize and make sure that you get the money back. You don't have to do the calling cards. You can, day number one, if you put something up on ShoStak, you have the ability to make money in some way, shape, or form, and that was super crucial for us.
So let's say I've got an idea, something that I wanna create, and I'm debating on whether doing traditional independent film or I want to do something that would be in this space. How does that work? Somebody in the audience here comes to you and says, I've got something I want to do. Is there an application process? Like, talk us through how it works. So officially, when will the platform launch, and what's the lead up to? There, I just asked 12 questions in one, basically.
Yeah.
We'll rewind it a little bit. Let's start with, when is the platform launching, and what does the lead up look like to launch?
We officially launched MVP to the public facing for subscribers in February.
Yep. And now for anybody that's watching, this is the beginning of December 2025. So we're talking just a few months from now.
And so for creators, the first 150, which is just kind of this is our approach to kind of embracing certain people and bringing them on so that they can interact with the platform at an early stage and help us create the DNA of what this platform should be for creators. They start onboarding in January. So there'll be about a month of onboarding for these 150 creators that we've curated. They'll get familiar with the platform. We'll empower them to be able to take full advantage of the feature set that will exist at that time, because it's an MVP, it's the most viable product.
I was going to say, explain MVP.
Yep. And so, in stages.
Most viable product is
Most
what you said.
viable, yep. And then
And for those that might not be business savvy, explain what a most viable product is.
a product that is at bare minimum working, but might not be in its full,
Kind of like a beta, launch, essentially.
one stage before that.
One stage before beta.
Before beta, yeah.
Okay.
And so usually their MVPs are you can either have a closed MVP, you can have a closed beta as well, or you can have an open MVP, open beta. We're doing kind of a hybrid in the sense that we're kind of capping it off to 150 creators, and then slowly opening that up. And then we're also going to be capping it off at 150,000 subscribers, and capping that off for the competition, and then we'll be rolling into beta and so on and so forth.
Okay.
But that's kind of getting into
Right. So you're starting with 150 creators. Yep. And so where are you sourcing those 150 creators from, and how many do you have so far?
We've got about 130 applicants right now, and we're sourcing them. We actually officially went global probably a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. Scotland's now in the race. We saw India. India's in the race. We got a pretty cool creator out there who's going to be onboarded. So, all around the world, our marketing is really fun and interesting. If you've watched it, we're taking a cool approach with that. And then direct outreach. We've got a list of medium tier creators and studios and relationships that we've built that we're kind of talking to as well. So a combination of everything.
So people are turning in an application to be one of the first 150 creators on the platform. And so from your back end, then, as these applications come in, you guys are evaluating, deciding who will be, some of your early creators.
Correct.
What's that evaluation process like? Like, what are you looking at, and how are you making those decisions on who will be that first 150?
Yep. You got to have a piece. You got to have a story that you want to tell, a world, and we can get into kind of the dynamics of what we mean by world. But you got to have for a familiar term right now is you got to have a season, essentially, that you want to create. You need to be able to kind of convey what this season is to the world. You got to be able to show people what you want, even if your pilot isn't made yet. You have to be able to let the world know through creative means how you want to create your pilot. Some experience, not necessary, but preferable if with the filmmaking experience and having a track record of creating products, and then just kind of. The ability to and the willingness to kind of participate in what we have going on here and the competition and whatnot.
So are you getting some people that are sending in maybe, a short or a pilot that they've finished that is a proof of concept, whereas other people might just send in a pitch deck that they've got for it, or somebody else might just send in a script or like a treatment document laying out what a season would be? What are you receiving currently from people?
We've seen all of the above. We have some people who have submitted, they've already got pilots that they've created. We have one person that has an entire season that actually was going to go with another vertical platform, and that vertical platform just didn't make it. And it tested really well, and they're excited to move it over to ShoStak and so we've got the spectrum. Some people just have pitch decks and concepts. And that kind of gets into the competition too. There's a little bit for everybody. It really kind of depends on your approach once you get into the competition. If you want to go ahead and wait until you get funded, if the audience selects, so we can get into that as well. But the whole gamut, everybody. I mean, if you got if you got a story that you want to tell and you have an idea and it's put together at minimum pitch deck, then we want to listen to it.
So you'll start with the first 150 creators, and then how long do you go with that 150 before you open it up and expand a little more?
So the second that the 150, once we, so Sunscreen Film Festival is the midpoint. Once we get to the midpoint of 3 months of the competition, we're actually going to start opening up to every creator around. At that point now, it's just pretty much you want to come in and create. You know what I mean? Like, we just won't open up publicly facing until the competition is over at 6 months. So we can probably, at that point, if there's 10,000 other creators that join ShoStak, they'll get a chance to interact with the platform in a closed beta situation for 3 more months before we officially launch at the 6 month mark to the public.
And so when you say the competition, what is the competition? The competition just to get on the platform, or are you talking about the competition?
So the competition is just our way of pretty much saying, hey, listen, we've got this new platform. We're really excited about this. And what's a way to invite creators and subscribers and show everybody what it is that separates ShoStak from every other vertical platform. And so we created this really fun, interesting competition that pretty much tour guides these 150 content creators through every single tool that will exist on the platform. And obviously, the icing on the cake is that for certain milestones, we're going to be we'll be funding up to 25 pilots. There'll be an audience vote for 3 of the worlds to have full seasons funded, and then one season. And then at the end of this, there's going to be a pretty significant cash prize, all dependent on 50% of all subscription revenue generated during the entirety of this competition will get put into a creators pool, and it'll just grow and grow and grow and grow, and that cash prize will be the equivalent of that amount once the competition closes its doors at the 6 month mark.
Okay, so you'll have the 150 creators that are in. Those 150 creators are going to be competing to basically get one of the 25 fully funded pilots.
Yep.
Okay. And so what are the things that those 150 creators will have to do, sort of milestones or whatever, as they're going through the process to get to the point where they could potentially be fully funded?
Yeah, so a lot of time and effort, again, went into this. We know and respect, creators' time, money, and so we developed a set of challenges that that respect that. So everything, all of the challenges that will be in this competition out of fun are designed to literally elevate your content from a marketing perspective. So things that you would have to do anyways in order to get your project out there, visibility to an audience without a traditional distribution company or somebody that would, essentially do that. So like a self-distribution model, we're gonna be having little challenges that help these creators do that, but also within the ecosystem of ShoStak. And as you win, the benefit of that is obviously real estate. You'll be put on top and featured, featured filmmaker, featured world for the week, et cetera, so that the audience can kind of like, they'll see you first or whatever the case may be.
And it's the audience that will vote on the 25, or internally you'll vote on the 25?
There'll be a small a fraction of internal vote, but the majority of it, we haven't nailed down the percentage, but it'll probably be 75% audience weight and then 25% ShoStak weight.
So that really does lean into the, as a lot of people know, like nowadays, a lot of distribution, is self-distribution. And we shouldn't even call it self-distribution anymore, because distribution is distribution no matter how you get it. Right. So platforms like FilmHub that people are using, where you create your film and they just put it on FilmHub and then they get it out to all of the different distributors and streamers on their own without having to go through a traditional sales agent or anything like that. And so what you're doing essentially is the things that someone would do when they self-distribute, because they got to drive the marketing all on their own. Right. They're achieving those same goals to build an audience in order to get their pilot funded, essentially.
Yep, exactly. And that'll be under, like, we're gonna be creating, we have a head of community that's gonna be assisting in this process, and we'll obviously be blasting it on our social media. And so there'll be a little bit of marketing money and support behind some of the challenge winners and stuff. So it'll be like,
So it's quite a bit different from a traditional microdrama platform, because a traditional microdrama platform the platform is king. It's like, this is the platform, this is the type of content that we have on here, whether it's, I haven't looked, but I imagine there's probably like a horror micro shorts kind of thing. So you got like a horror micro shorts, or, these, romance, Harlequin novels turned into, micro dramas sort of stuff. But yours is like, it can be any genre, any format, any whatever you want to create.
So just recently, I don't know if you guys, there was an article that came out that YouTube surpassed a combined Netflix, Hulu, like interactions and subscriptions and all this stuff, bigger than any streaming platform in the world. The reason that exists is because obviously YouTube has set in place a business model that the world has obviously embraced. That YouTube model, we had one of our creators, the guy out in India, he's got he's pretty significant experience level on the production side. He's like, you guys are like a YouTube, but for vertical platforms with a way better monetization model. And I was like, yeah, that's a nice couple 5-6 words to sum us up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We believe in the value of what YouTube does, but where they fall short is that there's a ton of crap on YouTube. So it's very hard to see your content. Their monetization features are extremely poor. And it's not narrative focused. You're actually penalized slightly for having narrative content on YouTube because that's not as successful or lucrative as other content.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, to sidebar a little bit to talk about sort of YouTube and the differences, like you mentioned, YouTube is actually the #1 streaming platform in the world, and more people watch YouTube on their television sets now than watch it even on mobile.
Yep.
It's steadily climbing. Like each month, it was at 49, then 50, then 51%, 50. So it's like climbing the amount that. And I know for myself, like if I'm cooking dinner or whatever, I just throw the TV on, leave it on YouTube, and let it roll random Ohio State videos, which beat Michigan this week. So I had to give that shout out for that, for those that are college football fans. But all that being said, YouTube's business model is not necessarily geared towards narrative content. You'll have channels on there that are narrative channels that film distributors are specifically putting their stuff up on YouTube, because you can rent films on YouTube. You can do all of that. But I think the majority of stuff is people watching podcasts or 3 people sitting in front of a microphone, talking about whatever they're talking about. That's a lot of the YouTube content that's out there that seems to be very popular right now. And this is obviously, any sort of narrative is going to be dramatically different, especially in the monetization side.
Right, right. And the narrative content, you can see that there's reputable channels out there where people love watching short format narrative content. But it's extremely demanding and difficult as a content creator if you're going to succeed on YouTube, because not only do you have to have a significant number of followers and views in order to become one of their preferred partners, but you also then have to put up X amount of content on a steady basis if you want to maintain that partnership. And so there's a lot of top tier creators who found that in order to maintain the lifestyle or this creative world that this business that they've grown, they have to pretty much sacrifice every ounce of time and effort that, and not have a quality of life. And so a lot of top tier creators has actually just kind of abandoned it and said, I just can't do this anymore. And that's just not a way to exist. If you have stories that you want to tell, you shouldn't have to create them so much all the time that you're burnt out. You should be able to focus on this stuff and go, you know what? I'm going to create this. I'm going to make money off of it. I want it to exist. And when I'm ready to tell my next story, I'll tell my next story, and I'm not going to be penalized for it. So that's just one more way that we found ShoStak to be different, while it's embracing some of the qualities of YouTube, because it's obviously amazing. We're taking a lot of the negatives and figuring out how to solve those problems.
Yeah, YouTube is so personality and, sort of YouTuber driven, where it's the person that is the channel, and that's who they are, and that's what they do, and whatever it is, whether it's makeup tutorials or filmmaking tutorials or sports or whatever it might be. It's really centered on that one person and not on storytelling so much.
100%. I dabbled in a little bit of understanding businesses, and when you come to hotel.com, right? There's this model that exists where if you can create a platform that drives people to your product, you can then kind of take other people's hotels and stuff like that and literally say, hey, you know what? You kind of have to be in my business model in order to kind of capture this audience that I've won. So I'm only saying that to say that a lot of these channels actually profit off of other people's content because they curate that content. They don't generate it themselves. Yeah. And so they bring these creators to their platform, and their claim to fame is that you can just watch all this content in one place. And if you look at the numbers that those creators are getting to exist on that person's channel, they're, if anything, zero, but maybe pennies on the dollar. And that's just not right.
And so why is ShoStak not Quibi?
Why is it not Quibi? Well, we've spent a lot of time figuring out exactly what creators need in order to be successful. So Quibi approached things from a traditional show business model, right? In the sense that they license content, they go out there and they'll pay filmmakers to make, and that's amazing. That's great if you exist within their their scope of creators. But ShoStak is different in the sense that we wanted creators to sit at the forefront of this. So we're not trying to just go out there and say, hey, the viewing audience is most important. We're saying the creators are most important, and then by proxy, the people that watch their content will come.
Sure.
So we're taking care of creators first, and every single tool that exists on this platform is for creators in a way to help them amplify their stories and elevate their monetization models.
Well, and even though, we keep talking about vertical format because it primarily lives on a phone, you don't have to create in the vertical format. You can shoot it in widescreen and put it on the platform on widescreen as well. It doesn't have to be vertical.
Exactly. Yeah, we're not here to tell creators what kind of stories they should create or how they should create it. We will maintain a certain quality standard for our canned subscription content, because we do want to protect the viewing experience. That's very important, so that you have an expectation when viewers come to the platform, such as Netflix and Hulu. The beauty of that is that you're going to watch a certain quality of movie, right? It's not going to be skipping frames, and there's not, et cetera, et cetera. But apart from that quality standard basics that we're going to be implementing, you make what you want, and you let the audience decide. That's capitalism,
Yeah. All right, good. Well, we could keep going up here, but as I keep questions, and I keep asking questions, and I look in the audience, I see looks on people's faces like they're understanding it, but I know they have questions as well. Yeah. And so usually I wait a little longer to do Q&As, but we might as well jump into Q&A now, because I know that people are curious about
raise your hand. I'll be happy to run
about what you're doing. So who has questions about here? Here we go.
I have a question about like vertical content in general. Like, does this change the pipeline from content creation, film festival, box office? Like, does this change that trajectory at all? Like for
Yeah, I mean, I think yes, it does, because it's just something completely different. Like you have that traditional, like you said, film festival, and then, you know, if it goes and it plays like a Sundance or whatever, and then it gets its theatrical, and then it gets its, you know, release window where it goes to HBO or Netflix or whatever. That's that traditional long form format. And so just like TV is different from feature films, is different from, you know, YouTube creators, then microdramas are their own separate thing as well. So it's you know, it's the same, but it's created a whole new vertical in and of itself of, you know, within the filmmaking world.
that makes a lot of sense.
Could you say more specifically, like how the monetization, works, like, and what it pays?
Absolutely, yeah, and that's the question, right? What is it? Yeah, exactly. So,
How do I get paid?
Right. So I debated on whether I want to go. I'm just going to go for it. So does everybody like pizza? Right? I think everybody here, it's safe to say there's some version of pizza that exists that you like, right? And there's not too many people that don't. I asked this question simply because there's three components that make up a pizza. You got your dough, whatever your dough is, your sauce, and your cheese. If you remove any of those, it's not a pizza, right? Combine them, and it's one of the most universal foods that exists on the world. ShoStak has taken every monetization tool that's worked out there and brought it under one roof. It is the pizza of streaming platforms for vertical, because we've taken the time to understand what tools that exist out there, and instead of them being third-party apps and Patreon and you name it that exists out there, all to kind of piggyback off of YouTube, we've taken the best of all that and brought it in. So how does that work? You have access to tips. So this is that starting at the lowest level. Your creator, your fan base that you already have internal, if they watch your content, they can tip you and say, hey, listen, we love your content. Here's $1, here's $5, here's $10, here's $100. Thank you for making this content. You can use that as a Kickstarter, a way to fund projects if you have a particular piece of content that you'd like to put up there and start raising money for. So you can actually use this vehicle as almost a Kickstarter form of getting money to make your project. So tips, easy peasy, right? It's not too hard to explain. There's a boost feature that allows you to essentially, your audience to interact with you and boost you up in the algorithm. That is human-based algorithm. We're not doing like YouTube where it's this complex, weird notion of like what's the most popular thing. It's audience-driven algorithms. So you can make money on that.
So when they boost, like they pay to boost you, kind of thing.
Yep.
Like your fans would be like, I want to boost them up in the rankings, and so the more people and fans pay, then you collect that revenue.
Yep, you collect that revenue. And tips, you get 100% of the tips. ShoStak, the only thing that your audience,
No taxes on tips.
the only thing that you got to pay for is subscription, the processing fee.
Processing fee. Yeah.
For boost, the platform takes 10% because it takes a little bit of horsepower to get you boost up. There's some mechanics that take place behind that. And then, so those are easy ones. That's what Patreon does, right? Nothing revolutionary with that. But then on top of that, where the money really exists for creators is our canon tier content, and that's the subscription revenue. ShoStak will be splitting revenue $1 from $1 of subscription. $2 come in for a subscription per month. ShoStak will be eventually working towards giving creators 70% of that subscription revenue. Before fees, before all that stuff, like you're getting from $1 from that. So all of that will go to a creator pool. And then all of the creators essentially will participate in that creator pool based on how the audience engages with their platform. So we're not saying like, oh, here's this little creator pool that you have over here, but we're going to take the cost of maintaining our platform. We're going to take the cost of X, Y, Z, and then after that, all of that. And then we're going to give you some money that goes in this creator pool. You're participating $1.
Okay, so that's really interesting because if you talk about, we'll use Netflix as an example because that's the streaming platform that's, everybody knows most in the world. So if you're paying whatever it is, $20 a month to Netflix because you want the advertising free or whatever it is, like Netflix keeps all $20. They're not splitting that up and giving anything to the different, documentaries or films or TV series that are on there because the way Netflix works is they might license a film plays at Sundance, Netflix comes out and says, we'll give you $10 million for that film, then they take it, they put it on their platform. $10 million doesn't really turn out to be $10 million because you've got sales agent fees and you've got marketing fees and everything else that comes off the top of that. And they'll pay you quarterly over a 3-year period. That's not a lump sum that comes all at once kind of thing. Those are sort of those distribution things people don't know. It's like they just signed a deal with $10 million for Netflix. Well,
right.
Sort of, but not really.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with anything, whether it's a Hulu or HBO Max or anything, any streaming platform you pay for, that subscription you pay, none of that goes to the creator because it's a different model where they're either licensing that content to put on their platforms. And then same thing with YouTube. YouTube obviously is advertiser driven primarily, and you can pay for the premium models of YouTube. But again, that money that comes in that you pay to YouTube, that none of that is not set aside specifically for creators. Same thing if you talk about now other ReelShorts, DramaBox, or these other streaming platforms that are the microdramas. Same thing. Whatever you're paying, that gets split up differently as well. So this is a different model that from anything else streaming wise. So to kind of go off of that compensation model, so 50% goes into the creator pool, and then based on how does then that flow to the creators from the creator pool?
Yep. So that's all based off of the watch algorithms of people interacting with your content. So if there's two movies that exist on ShoStak, and 50% of that creator pool now has $100 in it, and there's 20 people who watched one movie and 20 people watched another movie. Well, that $100 that exists in that creator pool will then be split 50-50 between those two creators, right? So it's all based off of how the audience engages with your content. And it's not a bunch of fees and all these things that exist after it. So you'll be connecting your own bank account to your profile, to your studio, and literally you'll watch the transactions come in, and you can organize it. It's all taken care of for you, and you can start to see the revenue being generated. Literally, the second that your subscription goes up and somebody watches your content, you start making money.
That's pretty cool.
Another comment here.
With ShoStak, what are the safeguards against AI media propagation, and what's the moderation on that?
Yep. So we believe in human-told stories. Period, exclamation point. AI offers some very valuable tools, I think, to help storytellers tell their stories. But we will not be supporting, nor does it have a place on our platform, 100% AI generated content. So where does that gray area exist? Well, what amount of AI is good? If it's a complementary tool, background replacement, things of that nature, by all means, you guys get creative. Creators do their thing, and we support whatever creative process you have in order to be able to tell your story. But if you're using AI to create actors and the actors no longer exist, or you're replacing certain those elements there, then we just don't want.
And because you're starting small with 150 creators, because people won't just upload their stuff right to the platform, it immediately goes live, kind of like YouTube. How's that? I think your question was how are you moderating and checking as they start to go up, right?
Yep. So we're gonna have a QC process integrated into the platform that obviously checks certain things.
And QC is
quality control. But we will, for these 150 creators, we will be humanly watching each particular piece of content that goes up, just to make sure that it checks all the boxes from that perspective.
And I suppose the hope is that as it grows, you'll have to hire a lot of people to watch. Because
Right.
you could get to the point where there's so much coming in. Like obviously for YouTube, it's impossible for a human person to watch every single thing that goes up on YouTube, and they don't care if you make AI stuff anyways.
Right. And there's programs that exist out there, the automation programs, QC programs that obviously give you the ability to monitor a large volume of content based off of the parameters that you're setting into place, to include obviously the technical portions of making sure that there's no frame drops and certain sound quality exists, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, because I was just going to say, QC or quality control, that's a typical part of independent or any filmmaking in general. Before a project gets distributed, it goes through QC, and after it goes through QC, you get a report back that says, all right, you do have a frame drop here, you've got this here, audio levels are too low in these sections, you've got to fix this, and so you have to fix all of those, quality issues before you can send it off to, it's called a Lionsgate or whoever else. So those are things that are happening in the traditional film space. And so you're going to incorporate that QC element that goes into the traditional filmmaking space into ShoStak as well.
Right.
Which is actually really cool because I can't think of any other, YouTube obviously doesn't do that, and any other self platforms. I'm not sure on the back end for the other micro dramas what they're doing, but obviously you can't have things. But that's cool to hear that there's that level of quality that you're trying to maintain for anything that goes up on the platform.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a couple other monetization features that we have in there as well, but those are the main ones, and we can get into one in a little bit. There is the advertising portion of it, but we believe that advertisements should be non-invasive. So you as creators will be able to control if you want to turn that on and capture that, monetization from marketing. And then there's one that we can get into in a little bit that this is the part that's kind of like the claim to fame for ShoStak.
Just to clarify what you said just before the Q&A, you don't have to submit something that it actually was shot vertically.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. It's not just vertical. It's not just vertical content that we're putting on shows. If you want to shoot horizontal, 16:9, you name it. Whatever format that you want to shoot in, that's your choice as a creator. We're going to be working with the. It's not revolutionary technology. Quibi actually did it back in the day where you were able to actually flip your phone sideways or vertical, and it kind of cropped for you. We're going to be looking to implement that into the platform, but you choose if you want to make it vertical or horizontal and then go from there.
And then how long will your content stay on the platform? Like, if I'm not mistaken, Netflix, if something's not performing well, then, they'll just...
It'll exist indefinitely as long as you have an account. Okay. Just like YouTube would.
And then SAG-AFTRA does have a verticals agreement. So
Yep.
Yeah, it's brand new basically. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But again, just like independent filmmaking, you don't have to use their verticals agreement. You can still use non-union actors if you want to do non-union.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a quick question. I'm a screenwriter, so I was listening when you were talking about having a season set up, and you referenced like the 90 episode, which is basically a feature, and you talked about having a cliffhanger at the end of each one. So as a screenwriter and also a former script supervisor, my brain's trying to wrap around this like explosion of information. Do you have anywhere where we can look at examples of scripts and what it looks like of the white of the page versus the action of the page, and what that looks like for those of us who are wanting to try our hand at writing one of these for the first time?
Absolutely. I'm actually going to give this over to my business partner because his product is the flagship product, and versus me talking about what his process was, I'm going to put him on the spot a little bit, and I want him to talk about how he enjoyed creating this short format episodic space. So here, Conrad, tell him a little bit about your creative process.
He's got a microphone there. And I would say, too, before Conrad jumps into it, so he can gather his thoughts real quick since Mike just threw it at him, is that if you look at, traditional television in the commercial format, because anything traditional TV that's on CBS, NBC, or whatever, they're still writing to the commercial break. And so if you think about how television has always been done, they always write to the commercial break, and you still have that cliffhanger at the commercial break to get you to watch through the commercials and come back to the show to see what happens next. So it's just an expanded format of that, if you think about it, right? Like, however many commercial breaks you have, I know a Hallmark Channel film is a nine act structure, and you have to write to those 9 acts for those commercial breaks within the storyline. So it could be whether it's a feature like that has the commercial breaks versus just television, regular television. And so then I'll let Conrad talk about kind of what he did for that platform.
Yeah, I think the ShoStak way might not be the vertical way that everybody else is doing it. The way that we're doing it is definitely not trying to do every 90 seconds or every 60 seconds something. If you want to do that, that's for all, you might have the best success at that. If you have something that's 5 minutes and you can have that, a little bit of something, then do that. If you can do it, we can do it in 3 minutes. So I was coming off of writing a horror script, writing it for 2 years with me and Mike, just going through drafts and drafts and drafts, and I just needed a break. And all this stuff was coming up. Me, Chris Jackson, were talking about some stuff. We were talking about all the different things. My girlfriend was watching these things, and I was like, "Wow, this is crazy. What are you watching? This is ridiculous." But
What are you watching?
but no shame in it. But so what I did was I just took a break, and I had this idea. I said, well, maybe I can do this, and I wrote something. I think it was like 3 or 4 pages, and then it just started flowing out of me, like flowing. Because I had to think of a big story, 90, 120 pages, cutting it down to 90, and just working on it, like what you do with a script. Having this ability to just put a little bit onto on a paper and have this connected series that were connected, but I could play with audience's expectations. I could play with what's happening next, as long as I'm giving them enough. So I think that's what you do. If you're a writer, you stick to what you think the story is, and then find those beats, like you said, the commercial break. How can you tell a story? And I don't think every story, this might be a little, I don't think every story can be told like this. I don't think this is for every story. I think this is for some stories, and I think there's some stories that are made to be in cinema. You know what I mean? And I think that you'll bastardize stories to some degree if you just try to make anything fit into that model. But I think there is a chance here to also tell different type of stories that are really cool and thought through, that maximize on that 3 to 5 minute range, or even that 1 minute range, depending on the story you're telling. So I think outside the box. Think about what's fun. Think about things that make you like, ooh, what would leave me at the, because these ones that are out there, that I've seen, they're not that good. The stories aren't that good. They have pretty pictures and they have whatever, but they're pretty cheesy. And they're pretty, cut and dry. But if we could elevate that, you can do something a little bit more like, whoa, who knows?
Yeah, because I think, we're still talking about the traditional 3-act storytelling structure. And if you want to talk about feature films, your Blake Snyder beat sheet and going through all of those story beats that you're hitting. And so a lot of writers, probably yourself included, you always, try and start with an outline. Here's where I want the story to go. Here are the beats that I want to hit through it. And so I don't think you're changing those beats at all, right? You're not changing the beats of what's happening in the traditional storytelling perspective, but as anyone who's a screenwriter knows, even within, think about every single scene is still mini 3-acts within the bigger 3-act structure. And so every scene has a change from the beginning of the scene to the end of the scene. And so I think if you think of it in that perspective, you're still doing the same writing that you've always been doing, but just as you get to the end of your scene, what is that driving force that's going to get you into the next scene, and how do you make that a little bit more hooky, essentially? And that's, as a screenwriter myself, kind of what I'm thinking as I think through the structure of it. And you think that traditional structure, traditional 3-act structure, and your inciting incident, da-da-da-da-da. But then each scene has that plus minus. Read Save the Cat, anyone who wants to get into that. That's the traditional kind of thing that gives you that format. That's that Hollywood format. But I don't think you're diverging from that format at all. You're just, building within that format for this structure. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and the thing that really stood out, to not to beat a dead horse, with the reason why I really just fell in love with what he did was that it wasn't adapted to fit a format. he embraced the format and wrote for that format specifically. And there was magic that came from that. And as I was watching him, we've written dozens of projects and have gotten in a million different arguments about story because we're both passionate about it. But I watched something kind of come out of him that was absolutely magical in the sense that it was new and fresh and interesting and fun. And I think as a storyteller, as a writer, I saw him excited about doing something that was just different. And that's what was really cool about it.
That was a very long answer to your
Yeah.
question. Is that?
But it's dope. As a writer, I mean, I geek out about this because it's so important, and I think I'm so excited about this new canvas. That's what's interesting about it. So sorry if I go down that rabbit hole a little bit.
So I have two different advertising questions on very opposite sides of the spectrum. The first is, do you plan on using advertising to supplement or replace subscriptions? I know on a lot of the apps that I watch, I can watch a bunch of ads and then it helps pay for extra episodes.
So that's up to you if you want to turn on advertisements. And we haven't talked about the structure of format of ShoStak that really makes this completely revolutionary. But long story short, our canon tier content, which is the subscription content, will not have advertisements on it. Now there's content that exists, there's stories that exist in the ether of your canon tier content that you can turn on advertisements for if you choose to as a creator, but that's completely up to you.
But I think you're also asking from a user perspective, you know, so like if anybody's on Duolingo or anything like that, if you don't want to pay for Duolingo,
Right.
you do your German lesson and then you watch some ads and then you can do your next German lesson or whatever it might be kind of thing. And so from the viewer perspective or the subscriber perspective, will it all strictly be pay, or will there be an advertising model where you can watch ads instead of paying a subscriber fee?
Yes, there's going to be multiple different options from a viewing perspective in regards to, like, if you maybe might not want to commit to a subscription revenue on a reoccurring monthly basis, but you maybe are interested in somebody's world. You can subscribe to that world once or pay like a fraction of the fee just to kind of engage with that for a certain amount of time. Or if there's a particular piece that you want to watch as a viewing as the audience member, and there's marketing that a creator chose to attach to their product, we'll eventually offer a monetization tool that says, hey, listen, watch this content without marketing on there, and that'll also exist from a monetization perspective.
Perfect. And then on the other side of it, it's ShoStak's own advertising to get the platform out. So the example that I know is brought up, that has been brought up recently in our circle in the vertical world, is ReelShort's old model of doing, well, for a minute, doing a model of co-producing with creators on a 70-30 split. And then now they're just licensing because the creators felt really burned because they weren't seeing any revenue, because essentially ReelShort was coming back and saying, actually, we haven't netted anything because we've spent
Right.
like $7-8 million advertising ReelShort.
Right.
So that might be a sensitive topic to talk about how you're going to advertise ShoStak and what the, how the net is actually going to work and that revenue split.
So call it what it is, but I believe that they just had a piss poor business model, right? They didn't take that into consideration. And so if you're going to offer your creators, if you're going to offer them and use that as a tool to bring them in there, then you should stick to your word. Our marketing, we understand that there's going to be X amount of dollars that needs to be invested into we're doing it right now. My wife here, who's my, she's my, co-founder of the company. She gave me the blessing to be able to obviously put our money where our mouth is, right?
You already have too many jobs.
But that's for us to figure out, right? We believe that, listen, if you're taken care of as a creator, you're going to want to be able to create more content. And if you get money for making that content, you're going to get better at making that content. And if we can foster a relationship of loyalty and trust, then why are you going to want to go anywhere else? And that's what we believe with ShoStak.
Thank you.
I think there was a hand back here, and then, okay,
Just a quick question. What are people paying to watch like 60-second vertical film? Like,
Currently,
yeah.
yeah, I think it's well, and Conrad's girlfriend would know better than I do. Is it 99 cents every time you jump to the next episode, like as you progress, or how do they fractionally work that? Oh, you could do a week trial, and then you do a week, a month, a year, and then if you want to watch the next one and you don't have a subscription, you'd be like, well, I'll pay for a week, and then you can keep. Okay, so a variety of models exist from weekly, monthly, yearly subscriptions to literally one episode at a time to a variety.
Was that the why that you were looking? Are you asking like why would people want to watch 60-second?
Yeah, part of their business model actually has been, and I saw an interview with one of the creators at some point in time that said that when people do that incremental paying, they'll only pay for so many, and they know how many they'll pay for. Maybe they'll pay for up to 10, and they decide they don't want to pay anymore. So then when it gets towards the end of these films, they get really weird because they just don't care at that point in time because they know people aren't actually watching all the way to the end sometimes. So it depends. I think it really depends on the model that you were talking about there, because there's a few different ones. But I know, and that's part of the conversation around this too, is people are asking like, are they using AI to write a lot of these verticals because they are just this cheesy, kind of format. For those people that watch the verticals, do you think they're using AI? I see some nodding heads that like, yeah, and yeah, because I have. That's what I've seen interviews and read. Yeah, but a majority of them, because again, they're only trying to get so far, and they're like, all right, now for these last 10 minutes or whatever, no one's watching this far. Just let AI write the last 10 minutes.
So if you have a short that you've shot and then are submitting it to film festivals, can you still use that to submit it for your competition? And then the question is, can you be putting it to film festivals and also putting it to ShoStak at the same time if you're actually one of the creators?
It's a two-part question. Yes. So the first question, just repeat the first part for me again real quick.
Is if it, like for instance, I just shot a short and I'm submitting it to some film festivals, but can I still use that content so that way you can look at my work for the competition?
The competition. Yeah, so the answer is yes. What we would ask though is that short expandable into an episodic format, right? There will be a place for standalone content, and we can get in. I think we should probably talk about it pretty soon so that you guys have context. But the short answer is yes, you can, so long as that you are able to provide us with the vision for taking that short and making it an episodic, a series essentially, and how you're going to do that.
Yeah, so like you talked about earlier, as people are submitting their pitch decks or treatments or whatever, like this is the full season, right. So you would essentially, a short would be your pilot for whatever that full season is.
Right.
And I will answer from the film festival side of things. Film festivals all have different rules and restrictions as far as where the content, kind of lives. So if it doesn't exist anywhere online, most film festivals will accept it. Some film festivals, once it gets up online, whether it's on YouTube or Vimeo or anywhere else, then they're disqualified for playing film festivals because they want that festival only premiere before it goes. But again, it depends on the individual festival. All festivals are different. Some allow them to be on YouTube, and we will still play festivals. And it depends on how long it's been in existence. Is it a year old, 2 years old, whatever it might be.
And we're going to be looking to, and this is getting a little bit ahead of what MVP is and stuff like that, but we actually very much respect the film festival process. And so as a creator, you will be able to essentially turn off your content, even if it's a standalone piece, to the viewing public and kind of just set it up as you want and just call it film festival mode for now. So as Tony said, you haven't released it to the world, but you can set it up to be able to do that. And eventually what we would love to do is to be able to capture the analytics of these film festivals that it exists in and bring those into your non-forward facing content before it's launched to the world, so that when you finally do launch with the world, and if it's in partnership with certain film festivals, you will then have that data that exists within your standalone content once it goes live.
Are the bios of the creators going to be posted? So that way people can be following like the actual creators as.
So one of the awesome features within ShoStak is that we are going to be taking the essence of IMDb and literally integrating that into the platform of ShoStak. So the ecosystem that we're looking to foster is also one of networking and access to other creators. So you got a standalone piece of content that exists. You want to just put it on, not competition specific right now. You put it up. You can go in there and you're going to have the ability to tag, as you would IMDb, all of the creators that participated in your content, in the making of your film, and they will then be invited to ShoStak to create a profile, et cetera, and so that ecosystem will exist. And we're very excited about the simple fact that we're also going to be integrating the technology at full launch, where the producers will be able to essentially create a waterfall system for crew members and whatnot, that essentially the platform will actually pay out crew members and cast members when the money comes in, and the producer doesn't necessarily have to split it out. These crew members and everybody will automatically get those payments as well. And so that's also something, the waterfall.
You're going to have, so again, I'll take it back to the, I can basically see, because I know traditional film business model, and Mike knows traditional film business model. He's essentially taken that and completely modified it and taken all the elements. So traditionally, you would have what's called a CAMA account, an account management account. And there's two main companies in the world called Freeway and Vintage, and I think they're both like in Sweden or something like that. And they're third-party companies that manage all of the flow of money to your different actors, your producers, and everybody else. And so when licensing fees or whatever come into them, they're the ones who distribute that. And so you're essentially working into this platform then the same thing, where they're getting that revenue, and then you as the creator can designate it automatically what percentage of that revenue everybody gets. You can keep it all yourself if you want,
Right.
or you can split it off and share it with your team as well. That's
100%.
You get a lot going on in there. Yeah, above the line and the below the line. Yeah, so if you wanted PAs to be able to make 0.25% of your project or whatever it is, that's a lot. There's a lot in there. I don't know how you guys have done this in such a short period of time. I know how you do it. You don't sleep.
Now, obviously, we're working in a very big development company to make this happen, so it has to be actionable. But these are all the tools that we have, from experience, have taken all of these and put it into the platform. Because how many times, as we creators, we want to go out there and make something super cool, and we tell the crew, like, hey, listen, and come out and support my project. And there are people who take care of their crew, but so often we've heard people just get burned, or like, well, hold on a second, like maybe you saw some mild success because your calling card, your business card actually worked, but now, like, what does that mean for us as the makeup artist and the DP and you name it? In today's day and age, why does that need to be so complicated? Just bake it into the tools that exist on the platform.
Yeah, that's.
So this is the thing that really separates ShoStak and what makes it completely different. There's going to be two essential containers that exist within ShoStak, and this is what we're really excited about. There's standalone content, which is self-explanatory. You have shorts and things of that nature that just exist because that's where the story exists. But what we're standing behind and what we're really proud of is creating worlds, creating interactive worlds. And what I mean by that is that this world container will essentially have 4 components to this. You'll have your canon tier content, which is the narrative portion, your series, right, which you aspire to be able to create and put onto the platform, right? Canon tier content. Right below that, what's going to exist is called fringe content. And fringe content is literally the way that you can activate all of your fans, fan fiction, things of that nature. Star Wars did it. All these people out there, they have these massive followings. They have these people who create content on the regular for them, but they aren't able to monetize. And the creators who are creating really dope stuff aren't even able to monetize. What we're allowing is, with the fringe level content, based off of the world owner's parameters that you're allowed to set, you can literally invite or allow people to create fringe content within your world container and monetize off that content. You take a portion of that from, as allowing them to create with that, but now they're creating content and they're expanding your world and helping you and contribute. So audio files, maybe somebody wants to do a really cool graphic novel and you've got these permissions set on there. Now these people are creating and marketing and advertising your world because they really love it, and you're collecting a fee for that, allowing them to exist within your world. But at the same time, they're literally making money off that as well, and you're creating this ecosystem where you're activating just tier after tier of people who just want to interact with your world. So that world container, that's the middle portion, that's the fringe portion. Then there's going to be, below that, there's going to be alt, and that's pretty much people who want to interact with your world, but it might be completely disconnected from the structure of the storyline. Maybe it's a satire, you know, something. Wolverine doesn't have claws, he has jello hands, you know what I mean? I don't know. But the thing is it allows people to interact with your content how they want to, if you have that permission on, and the content that they create, sure, you let them interact and have fun with that. It just drives people back to your world. So you're creating marketing by allowing people to interact with your IP. This is the revolutionary part. The people have to switch over and realize that there's opportunity out there by allowing people to interact with your IP and not keeping it so close to the chest. And by doing that, now nobody's gonna watch Wolverine Jello Hands and want to go and then not want to watch Wolverine, right? So it all drives this ecosystem that allows people to build these worlds and create deeply immersive experiences so that people are watching your canon content. Maybe your next season is coming out, but they really want to see some more stuff, and they've got a bunch of creators that you created in the fringe world, and they've got one-offs, they've got audio files. Are there any video game players out there? How often do you go on these side quests and you come across an audio log and you read these audio logs? It's about creating an immersive experience. And so this whole system all plays well together. And then we have the fourth tier, which is marketplace, where you own your own marketplace and you're able to essentially put merchandise up. You're able to sell your score if you want, if you have the music and you created that score. So you'll have your own marketplace within your world container, and it's all literally a system set up so that it becomes an immersive experience for your audience. And that's the thing that separates ShoStak from any other platform that exists out there.
And so we'll do just 5 more minutes, and then we've got to clear the theater because we've got to be out by 8, and then we can continue to talk in the lobby for anybody that wants to continue to chat in the lobby.
Yeah, no, I do. If a creator wanted to, could they do the model where they give away 5 episodes and then charge $1 an episode? Is that a possibility?
So in order to have your content exist on the canon tier, which is essentially the subscription tier, you have to have that season completed, right? Because we want to respect, it's kind of like Netflix, right? Like there's we're not going to allow creators to create one episode and then never.
No, that.
So to answer your question, then what you can do is if you have something that's not, if you want to release it in that nature, it's not complete in its entirety, on that fringe level, you're allowed to put your content on that fringe level there, and you'll have the monetization options such as watch 3 episodes and pay just for those 3 episodes or whatever the case may be.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's what I meant is like, let's say we have a complete season, but we just want to monetize it in such a way as to hook the audience with the first 5 and then charge per episode if that's a possibility.
Yep. And so the beauty is if you have a complete season, just because you want to monetize, what we're also doing with this platform is we're essentially empowering people to syndicate outwards. So if your content, you want to base it in ShoStak, but if you want to then take your canon tier content and release the pilot on your Instagram, then go ahead and release the pilot on your Instagram. Draw people in, let them watch that, you know what I mean, interact with that as needed, and we'll allow those features to kind of exist and turn those things off or on. So somebody might, if you choose to turn that on, say, you don't have to subscribe to watch my world, but maybe I'll unlock a 99-cent you watch my pilot feature. And you get to just watch you get what I'm saying? Or you watch that pilot for free, but then you have the option to then engage with the content in other ways.
Well, and here's another question for you then. Is it exclusive? So let's say, you know, I don't know, some executive at Warner Brothers is watching it and they like, this is really cool. I'd like to make a series for HBO on this. Is it exclusive to ShoStak, or could then it be licensed to other platforms if other people want it as well, or would they have to create something new? Because there could be that possibility, which would be a great possibility, is people start discovering it on there and then want to, scale it up, essentially.
ShoStak is an IP incubator if you really get down to it, and we do not own your content. So if HBO comes across and says, wow, this show is really successful and we would love to turn this into a full season or series, guess what, guys? ShoStak worked. And you guys are now able to take your content and make it as needed. Now the question becomes, does HBO tell you that you got to take it off of ShoStak? TBD, we don't know. There's going to be certain things that place, but we cannot, the way the business model is set up is we can't make you keep your world on ShoStak. Right.
Anything that you fund, you have exclusive rights for X number of years.
Right.
Yeah, for a certain number of time. Yeah, of course. Sure, that makes perfect sense. So if ShoStak is paying for it, then you can't just take it off and throw it on HBO.
Right.
You have to be on there for a certain amount of time. So
Right.
we'll do one more question, Coley in the back there, and then we'll move out to the lobby. Or I'm sorry, right here and then back there.
How much are you looking in your season development for the season to wrap up in a nice package with a bow on top versus end on a bigger cliffhanger to create more seasons to follow?
When you say how much, would explain a little bit more. Like, what are you?
Like, are you looking for a season to be kind of a complete, obviously complete narrative, but something that's done at the end of the season, or something that goes on?
Can you have a cliffhanger at the end of your season going into season 2, or does it have to just wrap up and be done? Is what you're asking?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, if you have a season 2, then I 100% recommend having a cliffhanger. So I don't know if that's the right. I mean, traditional.
Kind of whatever you want to do as a creator. Basically?
Yeah, you can do whatever you want. Now, so the parameters that exist, what constitutes a season, essentially, is the parameters that we haven't 100% implemented, but that we are thinking about implementing. That an episode needs to be between 1 and 10 minutes in length, your choice, and a season needs to constitute at least 3 episodes.
Okay, so you could have a 3-minute season if you wanted 3 1-minute episodes. That's your season.
I mean,
if you wanted to.
If that's your choice as a creator, yeah. And so we haven't cemented that. We may go 5 minimum, 6, but I don't see any real necessity to make it 5 or 6. If you have a season that's 3, it just can't be 2 because that's not a season, right? That's a 2-part series.
I get it. Yeah, I mean, think of it like Adolescence on Netflix was a 4-episode limited series, right? Granted, those were 45 minutes to an hour.
Right.
And I just watched it for the first time the other night. Man. Anyways, not to sidetrack, but
I haven't seen it.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
What? I mean, seriously, that was one of the best. Yeah.
Just to cap
and a wonder.
Just to cap the exclusivity question, which is an important one. Say in that awesome scenario, you guys funded a project and now Netflix wants it because it built on ShoStak in 6 months. Even though it's exclusive to y'all, I assume it'd be like, all right, well, let's sell it to them and split that pizza too, right?
Right.
Yeah, like,
absolutely.
Why wouldn't you want that?
It's in our best interest to essentially help you guys get that project made. Right?
Yeah, if you co-create the IP, we can then go syndicate the IP.
100%. And our philosophy is essentially this: if that takes place and HBO now makes your project, and let's just say they want to buy it off of ShoStak, I'm going to market the hell out of that.
Yeah. Well, preferably
right?
you would license
and I'm going to let it happen because HBO just saw somebody's project and now they're big-time HBO filmmakers, and guess where that happened? ShoStak.
Yeah, and our argument could be that we just build it up so you can't buy it, you can license it though. It's
right.
like,
unless
the check's big enough, I guess.
Right, and essentially the ShoStak eventually gets to the point where, listen, it is a business model in itself, so like there will be a point in time where it's just as lucrative to keep your content on ShoStak as it would to essentially sell to HBO. That's our goal. Like, it shouldn't be like we leave it on here because we want something better. It should be, this is awesome. We want investors to invest in more projects that fit in this format because this is a lucrative business model and we don't want to take it anywhere else.
Good.
Super dope.
All right, so we're going to need to leave the room, so we want to wrap it up, and thank you everybody for coming out. We can continue the conversation
Yeah,
in the
well,
lobby.
absolutely. Looking forward to speaking with you guys.